It was just past midnight when I caught a woman in a polka-dot bathrobe, clutching a flashlight and a can of bright red spray paint, skulking around my backyard. At first, I thought it was a prank, but there she was, Eleanor Grayson, our self-appointed HOA president, hunched by my fence like a bandit, muttering about property lines and restoring community rights. She sprayed a jagged X on one of my oak fence posts, then whipped out a measuring tape, reciting HOA bylaws like a sermon. I flicked on the motion sensor floodlights I'd installed after raccoons raided my garden, and Eleanor froze, eyes wide, caught red-handed. The security camera captured every second. That's when I knew this wasn't just another petty HOA letter taped to my door. This was a showdown, and if Eleanor wanted to fight over my fence, I'd give her one she'd never forget, be taking away her only way home. 3 days earlier, life was peaceful. I was on my deck, sipping coffee, reviewing a permit for a new shed I'd filed with the county. My wife, Diane, was flipping through a home improvement magazine, reading tips about perennials. We'd bought our 5-acre property in Willow Creek, a quiet suburb just outside the city, 4 years ago. It was perfect for remote work, with a sturdy oak fence that had stood for 15 years, framing our land with neat rows of hydrangeas. No one had ever complained about it until Eleanor moved into the cul-de-sac. Eleanor wasn't subtle. I first met her when she was berating a mail carrier for parking near her driveway. She introduced herself by thrusting a petition under my nose, demanding I sign to ban unsightly mailbox designs. I said no. That earned me a label on the neighborhood's online forum, troublemaker. Eleanor had an opinion on everything: your shutter's shade, your grass length, even your recycling bin placement. But my fence? That was a new low. It started with a neon green notice slapped on my mailbox, claiming I'd violated HOA Rule 5.2c, which didn't exist. The issue? My fence was obstructing a community pathway. There was no pathway. Behind my property was a drainage ditch and a tangle of pines, nothing resembling a trail. Eleanor showed up the next day, waving a manila folder like a general. She demanded I dismantle the fence within 48 hours to preserve neighborhood flow. I laughed. She didn't. She insisted the fence disrupted community harmony and cited anonymous complaints. When I asked who complained, she snapped, "That's private." She flashed a map showing a supposed walking trail from a scrap development plan from 2005. I knew she was bluffing. The ditch was never cleared or zoned for public use. When I pointed this out, she claimed she had the HOA board's full support. I asked what board. The last president had retired to Arizona, and no one had voted since. "I've taken charge," she declared, like she'd just crowned herself mayor. Diane, leaning on the porch railing, asked if Eleanor even understood what a drainage easement was. Eleanor stormed off, muttering about legal action. The notices piled up, fines on flimsy paper, threats from contractors. I checked with a county planner, who confirmed our property lines were clear. The fence was ours, 100% legal. But Eleanor was relentless. She wanted her imaginary trail, and my fence was in the way. I started documenting everything: every letter, every rant, every odd glance she shot my way. I backed up my camera footage and added a second lens near the fence post she seemed fixated on. My gut told me she'd escalate. Sure enough, she did with that midnight spray paint stunt. After I caught her, she bolted. I emailed the footage to the HOA's shared inbox, which I suspected only she read. Her reply came fast: "Sharing this video violates HOA decorum." I wrote back, "Go ahead and try me." The next day, I filed a vandalism complaint with the county. Diane, a paralegal, sent a cease and desist letter citing harassment. Eleanor doubled down. She posted on the HOA's forum, claiming I was denying greenway access and had blocked a historic trail for kids and seniors. She used a photo of a park miles away, not my yard. The post got 4 likes and a flood of laughing emojis. Then a contractor knocked on my door, holding a work order signed by Eleanor Grayson, HOA president, to tear down my fence. I showed him the property survey and mentioned the restraining order I was filing. He left in a hurry. Eleanor showed up later, hands on hips, giving me one last chance. I told her to step on my lawn, and I'd call the sheriff. That's when I spotted Ida blueprint in her folder labeled Community Pathway Phase 1, cutting straight through my garden. She wasn't just after my fence. She wanted my land. That's when it clicked. I wasn't just stopping her, I was turning the tables. Eleanor didn't know her house, and the entire cul-de-sac relied on a single road. And that road? It ran through a strip of land I owned. Legally, completely, and quietly. She was about to learn what it meant to overstep. I barely slept that night, replaying the video of Eleanor defacing my fence. Diane tried to lighten the mood, joking that HOA stood for hounding our acres, but we were both on edge. The next morning, I headed to the county records office, pulling every deed, plat, and zoning file tied to our land. I came home with a stack thicker than a dictionary. Spreading it across the kitchen table, I found the key. A narrow strip along our property's north edge, where the cul-de-sac's access road ran, was mine. The road looked public, paved years ago, but its easement expired in 2010 and was never renewed. Eleanor's house depended on my land, and she had no clue. Diane grinned. So you could block it off? I nodded. But not yet. First, we dig deeper. Diane tapped into her legal databases and found Eleanor's permit request, signed as acting HOA president, for a community wellness trail. It matched the blueprint I'd seen, but she'd forged my approval, claiming I'd agreed verbally. We took the evidence to the county zoning office. The clerk flagged it for fraud, noting Eleanor's HOA had caused issues before. I realized she'd bullied others, banking on their silence. Not me. We sent a cease and desist letter, copying the old HOA president, who still checked emails. Silence followed until a board member, Tom, apologized, unaware of Eleanor's votes. At an emergency HOA meeting, the clubhouse was packed. Eleanor arrived late, in a blazer, preaching about unity. I presented my evidence. The spray paint video, fake maps, forged signatures. Gasps filled the room. Tom asked if she'd held secret votes. She had no answer. Then I revealed the road's ownership. Eleanor went pale. The road? She stammered. My road, I said, holding up the deed. I can gate it for private use if I want. The implication hit hard to lose direct access, tanking her property value. She stormed out. The board halted her trial plans. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Eleanor spread lies, claiming I'd bulldozed the road. A neighbor, Frank, called to check. I set him straight, and he laughed, saying he might build his fence. Then another crew arrived, hired by Eleanor for HOA land surveying. Diane stopped them, demanding proof of authority. Their form had Eleanor's signature. I called Sheriff Dan, a high school buddy, who arrived with the deed on his phone. Eleanor screamed about public land. Dan showed her my title and warned of trespassing charges. She called Diane a legal vulture and left, but I saw her glance back at my road, plotting. That look pushed me to act. I walked my land's north strip, the gravel path everyone assumed was public. It was mine, and I'd make Eleanor feel her mistake. I hired a contractor to build a gated utility road, citing future orchard plans. Permits were filed, all legal. When work began, Eleanor charged out, yelling about no notice. I waved from my side of the line. Private road upgrade, I said, all above board. She fumed, knowing one wrong step meant court. The crew raised the path, laid fresh gravel, and installed a steel gate with a keypad. A sign read, Wilson's Way, private agricultural access. Diane picked the name, saying it fit since Eleanor tried to trample our lives. Sheriff Dan checked my permits and chuckled. You covered every base. Eleanor's SUV now took a bumpy, 10-minute detour through a muddy service trail. Diane and I watched from the porch, coffee in hand, as her tires kicked up dust. Justice was quiet but sweet. Neighbors noticed. Frank called the detour Eleanor's Loop, and word spread. Eleanor sent a letter, begging for road access in exchange for dropping her trail. I replied, no. Her HOA influence crumbled as Tom exposed her $3,000 in unauthorized spending. She was ousted from the board. I added solar lights and saplings to Wilson's Way, turning it into a community gym without crossing my land. A hiking group asked to use it for walks, and I agreed, routing them away from Eleanor's lot. Diane called it the petty parade. I called it fair. Peace settled in until Eleanor tried one last stunt. At midnight, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. There she was on camera, in a hoodie, holding bolt cutters near my gate. A floodlight snapped on, and Diane's recorded voice warned of police. Eleanor fled. I sent the footage to the HOA, and by evening, she was banned for life and fined for attempted vandalism. A week later, her house was for sale, falsely claiming easy access via scenic private drive. I called the realtor, clarifying the truth. The listing changed, and her sale prospects dimmed. Then came her final act. Eleanor filmed a sob story at my gate, claiming I'd ruined her community dream. I recorded her from my porch and posted it online, titling it Eleanor's Last Stand. It went viral locally. She didn't respond. Weeks later, a moving truck took her away. No goodbye, no wave, just gone. Wilson's Way became a symbol. We added lanterns, a bench, and a plaque. Freedom lives here. The HOA rewrote its rules, requiring votes for all decisions. At a neighborhood picnic, kids played, and laughter filled the air. Diane and I toasted on the porch, her words lingering. It started with a fence. I nodded, and ended with a road. The fight wasn't just about land, it was about standing up to bullies who think they're above consequences. Eleanor learned the hard way. Push too far, and you'll lose more than you bargained for. What do you think? Have you faced a bully like Eleanor, or seen injustice in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments. Should we fight back with strategy, or is there a better way? Let's hear your stand.